Welcome back to the channel. So today we want to continue with our walkthrough of the FreeCodeCamp curriculum, and in this series of video, this is what we are going to be building, this label here, and by building this we'll be learning typography. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so here we have our HTML boilerplate, which has already been provided for us. As you can see, we have a doc type declaration, we have an HTML element, and within the HTML element, you have a body element and also a head element. And the head element has a title with the text nutrition label, and we also have this meta tag here. All right, so the first thing we want to do now is to add an h1 element. Once again, this is what we are building, so this is the h1 element we want to add. So let's add the h1 element, and we'll say nutrition facts. All right, so next up, below your h1 element, want to add a p element, and the text we want to give it is 8 servings per container. All right, now we want to add the second p element, and the text we'll give it is this right here, so I'll just copy it and then paste it here. Okay, so for step number 4, within your head element, you want to add a link element with a real attribute set to style sheet and the href attribute set to this right here. So this is for Google Fonts, right? So I'll add link like so, and then I'll say real and give it a value of style sheet, and then I'll say href, and then I'll give it this value right here. So what this link will do is that this link will go to Google Forms and then import Open Sans font family with a font weight 400, 700, and 800 as stated here. So if you don't know, Google Fonts is it's just a library of fonts where you can get a whole lot of different fonts to use in your project, right? Okay, so once we are done with that, we're also going to add another link element to our style sheet. As you can see, we have our style sheet here, but it's not yet linked. So for example, if I do body and say background color, just say green, this green is not applied because our style sheet has not yet been linked to our HTML. Okay, so let's go ahead and link it. The way we do that is to say use the link element, and we say real style sheet, and then we'll give it href of styles.css. Okay, so once we do that, our style is now working, which means our styles.css file and our index.html file has been successfully linked. All right, so now let's continue. Okay, so next thing we want to do is to create a body selector. So now we are in our CSS. Okay, so we say body, bring our curly braces, and I want to give it a font family. Okay, so we're going to use the font that we imported in the previous step. So we'll say font family, and we'll say Open Sans. Okay, so the reason why I'm using these quotation marks is because if there is space in the name of the font, in the font name, then you have to use Open Sans. Sorry, then you have to use quotation marks. Okay, so for example, for Open Sans, there is this space right here. So it's because of this space that I'm using Open Sans. And then I want to give it a fallback of sans serif. So assuming the user's browser does not have Open Sans, then sans serif, which is common, will be the default font that will be used. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot a comma here. All right, there you go. All right, so step number 6, we'll say the font is a bit small. So we want to create an HTML selector and set the font to have a size of 16. So we'll say HTML, we'll say 16, sorry, font size, and we'll say 16 pixels. Okay, now wrap your H1 and P element in a div element. Give that div a class attribute of label. Okay, so these are our H1 element and P element. So give it wrap it in a div. Let me indent this, and I'll bring my closing div like so. And then I want to give it a class, and the value of the class will be label. Okay. Okay, next up, borders can be used to group and prioritize content. So we want to create a dot label selector and give it a border. So as you can see, this is what we are building. So let's continue. So the label div that we just created, we want to select it, and because it has a class, we'll use the dot label, and then we'll give it a border. We'll say 2 pixels, solid, and then we'll say black, which is the color. Okay, so now we have this border surrounding our elements. All right, let's continue. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to make good use of white space so that we can bring focus to the important element of your page, and this will also help guide your user's eyes through the text. So the way we want to do that is we want to first give the label selector a width property, and want to give it a value of 270 pixels. And then we also want to give it a margin property first. So margin, and want to set the value of margin to 20 pixels auto. Now what this means is that for margin top and margin bottom, we'll have 20 pixels. So assuming I do 80 pixels, you see what happens. Then margin top and bottom is 80. All right, and then the second value, so the first value is for top and bottom, margin top, margin bottom, and then the second value is for margin left and margin right. So in this case, margin left is auto, margin right is also auto. That's why we have our element being centered nicely like so. Next up, we want to set padding, and we want to give the first value of 0, the second value of 7 pixels. So it's the same thing. So for this one, what it means is that padding top and padding bottom is 0, and then padding left and padding right is 7 pixels. All right, so we will end it here for this video, and then we'll continue in the next one. So see you in the next one, where we continue building our label here while we learn CSS typography.